Welcome to The Teacher's Story. I'm Jackie Scully. This is a podcast to elevate teacher voice. In this program, you will hear teachers sharing their journey into this profession and their ideas for education. I'm kicking it off Teacher Appreciation Week, which starts May 2nd. This is about honest, vulnerable, inspiring storytelling. It's a time and a space for teachers to share their ideas for the future of education. Teachers are beautiful beings who give their heart and soul to their community. They're innovators, they're inspirational, not only to children, but to the people around them. And they deserve to share their voice. So welcome to The Teacher's Story. Enjoy. Hi, welcome to The Teacher's Story. This is Jackie Scully, and today we have a very special episode because I have two former guests on that also have met and have been collaborating. We have Katarina and Anne-Marie. And Katarina has she's the founder of Global Leadership Schools, and she's also the CEO of Destiny International 11. And I love to hear more about her developments through 2023 and her vision into 2024. And Anne-Marie has C Incorporated, and C stands for Systematic Equity Edits, and talks a lot about like the cognitive work that we can do to break down some of these barriers in our thinking. So I love that you two have been collaborating and talking to one another, and we're having, this conversation again on The Teacher Story. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an exciting subject, education.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I'll start with Katarina. Tell us a little bit more about the work you're doing currently and maybe like what you're looking into doing in the new year.
Okay, so finally things are getting really exciting. I've been excited for 20 years and I haven't lost my motivation, but things are getting, there's a saying, when the rubber hits the road, it's like now we're really starting. And our vision is to transform 195 schools, one school in one town, in every country in the world. So that's 195 schools. And how we're going to do that is we're creating a team of 20 coaches right now. And those coaches will learn to be and train to be global leadership schools, teachers and coaches, and go into schools and actually help young people in that entrepreneurial journey. So it's really, really exciting. So what's the problem we're solving? It's Dr. George Land did a survey on over 1,000 children and found that when they started school, they were at 98% creative genius. By the time they were teenagers, it was down to 12%. So something's not working in schools, that's clear. So Ken Robinson said the same, not enough creativity in schools. So it needs to be much more child-centered, much more centered on the future, because the future for our children is getting more and more complex. So they need to know, number one, who am I? Number two, what am I up to? Number three, what's stopping me and how can I reframe that? And number four, what is my vision and purpose? And just recently there was a video on this, that schools, the purpose of school should be purpose. And I totally agree with that concept. So what's new is that we finally have a budget of $20,000 to go into Google Ads to advertise for coaches, and then to schools, to thank you, to principals, to teachers, and then finally to parents, because there are some parents who say, I'm not happy with my schools, with my children's school. I would like to help my child as much as possible. So that's what we're up to right now.
This is so big. And I love that this vision of 195 schools, right? And you are touching the whole world. So a city in each country in the school. And the money, right? The funding, we've talked about this, like you can have these wonderful ideas, you can have a plan, but if you don't have the funding, it just kind of falls flat. So the fact that you're actually able to get that funding and see this become a reality is really great. And I have just been following a lot on even just Instagram recently, and a lot of people are talking about the same thing you're talking about, is that children are losing this sense of inspiration, this light by the time they're even in like upper elementary school. And to go from 98% to 12% by the time you're in high school, I mean, that is a huge, huge drop. Um, and we've been talking about this before on this podcast, and I write about it in my book. But now I hear more people talking about it. There's more people actually exposing this truth that children they're miserable and they don't see their light, and they get to high school and they just see that they're checking boxes and they're basically kind of just doing something that their parents are telling them to do or that society's telling them to do. I teach at a school where it's college prep, and not all, but many of the students are doing things that they feel like that's what's expected of me in my culture, in my family, in my community. And I don't know how much they're tapping into really who they are. And that's sad because by the time they're out of college, and they could also have debt from college, they could just be lost. And like, what did they gain in all of those years in school? It's just kind of like a big waste of time. So I love what you're doing. And I love that now there's funding to back these goals. Thank you for sharing that. And Anne Marie, share with us what you've been working on this year in 2023 and plans for the new year.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of orbit in our world of education here and support each other in the work that we're doing. So that vision and purpose really stands out for me. I started out in 2023 with a bang. Like, we had our second year of a multi-year research project that we've been doing on equity consciousness and getting some very interesting insights from hundreds of people across the globe. Every continent except for Antarctica is represented, and different walks of life, which I love. And found that very insightful information to then develop some resources to go along with that, equity edits, just to help people start to have some of those uncomfortable conversations or grapple with some thoughts that they don't know how to really digest and change, but they have enough of a seedling is all we need, right? Of thought on the idea of change. And so between the research and the resource and doing the focus groups and getting insights for that and publishing that on the website, I've been doing a lot of writing now. My commitment was to then follow through with some micro books on equity consciousness itself, and then the tendencies that we tend to have, which is having like the idea of rationalization or normalization, deficit view, or diversity erasure. Really important for us to be able to recognize our place with those tendencies. And what's interesting from the research is Katrina talked about the problem that they were solving, which is phenomenal. We're looking at mindsets, right? And the research is telling us that about nearly 90% of those who participated, and by year 2, we had almost 750 people participate, and we're at almost 1,000 with year 3. And nearly 90% believe in change and that we're capable in this world to have that change. But within that 90%, there's an average of about 30% across the years of the study that people are not recognizing their own blind spots. They're not recognizing what they're not seeing. And so in helping people see things differently, we can work with that, right? Bringing in some additional resources and tools will be the focus moving forward. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that we're doing and the impact that we're able to have. So a little bit of a transition, because I had been doing a lot of consulting with different organizations. And now with focusing on the writing and getting that information out for the third year study, this year is going to be a little bit more behind the scenes, less consulting and more resource development, because it really is about breaking down those barriers for those who are historically marginalized. And I think that has huge impact on things like the work that Katarina is doing with designing those creatives for the schools. It's, we don't even recognize the power of our language, body language, words, the way that the tone we use when we have that huge responsibility in an educational setting to help children recognize the value that they have and that they don't have to fit into a mold, which in a lot of ways our education system has become. And we missed a huge opportunity with COVID. I think we spoke about that before. I think that it was an opportunity to reflect and make some changes, but I'm so excited to see the work that like Katarina's group is doing and that we're doing and that you're doing, Jackie, in making sure that we're being a voice for those who aren't being heard right now.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I can see this connection already, which kind of moves into like the next part. But I could see the work of the cognitive piece and leadership go hand in hand, because you need to have leaders in schools who know that type of work and know how to, train their faculty to work with kids on looking at the framing, their mindsets that they have about each other, about their community, about themselves. And I like the focus on language, like not just language with words, but body language. I think we're in a place now where we're recognizing the things we've been doing for so long that don't work, and kind of moving away from just like PC versus like non-PC, and keeping it so black and white, but these like very minute, small things that we do all the time that will affect our mindset and we don't realize it. So like you mentioned, 90% of people want to see change, but 30% don't recognize actually what they're doing that is keeping them stagnant. And so that is critical, is that you could want the change, but then you also have to do the work to have that change. So coming back to your connection, either one of you who want to kind of chime in first about how both of you met, and then kind of like that initial kind of conversation and what you've been, sharing with each other.
Yeah, great. Katarina, do you want to take lead on that one?
I know that we connected. I'm not quite sure how. Did we connect through you, Jackie, or through Sadiq, maybe?
It might have been. Yeah.
I know it
But
was on
anyway,
LinkedIn. I know it was on LinkedIn. I don't remember who was that person. So if it wasn't you, Jackie, we appreciate whoever it was. Recall.
That's so funny. I know. I think LinkedIn has a big part of it, of connecting, but I think also when people see other like-minded people that are connected with them, maybe they listen to a podcast episode and they're like, oh, wow, this is kind of like linked into what I am doing. And then you jump on a call and connect. And I mean, I see like the through line through both of your messages and how you're connected. So if there's anything you want to share about your vision and how both of your work can kind of like be kind of combined together.
Yeah, so I do recall that there was some interaction in a chat from a post, and we saw each other for a little bit and then reached out. I don't remember who reached out first, but the important thing is we connected over Zoom, and that was, how you set up a 30-minute or 45-minute time to connect with someone. And I think we were at least an hour and 15 minutes into it. And we were like, we have to go. Like we've got trickling meetings backing up now, and it was over that belief of our global citizenship and responsibilities, right? And how children come to the platform of an educational system outside of their education from home, because, you know, from birth, they're learning. From the moment they come out of the womb, they're learning. We just get to have them for the majority of the day when we're in an educational system, right? And so we had those conversations about how sad it is that kids come in with eyes wide open and ready to step into anything. And within the system that they're trying to be fed and grow, they're actually in many ways being stifled. And where is that? You know, if we had the $1 million answer, we would be able to like have greater impact. But what we have is that cognitive connection, right? What happens neurologically for our students when they have that look that may not even be intentional in their direction, but is taken in a certain way, or the tone of something, or just the directive that learning can be delivered in. And so we really started talking about how essential it is for children to have the opportunity and for adults to just, I believe in the ability of the adults and I believe in the intention of the adults. I just think that you don't know until someone has pointed out. You know, if you can see it, then you can be it. And so we had a lot of conversation around that in how do you then step in? And I'll let Katarina continue on because she is working more on the ground with that goal of the 195 schools and doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Yes, I'm happy to carry on that conversation. But I just want to say something about the synchronicity of vision.
Mm.
For me, it doesn't matter how I met you, Anne-Marie, and you, Jackie. We were meant to meet, and it's becoming exponential. It's the more focus we put in our vision, in our mission, the more we attract absolutely amazing people. And they come like every day. They're coming every day to me now. So I have lost track of, I know who I'm connected with. I don't know how I'm connected with them, but I don't question that. But anyway, Anne-Marie, this is really, really essential. I mean, Sir Ken Robinson presented the problems, and he had in education, he had thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers, right? So did Sir George Land. So we are now coming up with solutions. And what are the solutions? Number one, to recognize the genius in children from 0 to 6. They're linguistic geniuses. They should not, in Sweden, often they just play at play school. They could be learning 3 languages, and languages are fun for children. They're just games, and you could learn languages through a game. And then it can serve you later on as a leader, as an entrepreneur, whatever your career is. 3 languages are always useful. Then by the age of 7, it's time to start your entrepreneurial journey, because 7-year-olds are so unlimited. I met one 7-year-old in Stockholm when I was on holiday in the archipelago. And I said, what are you going to do when you grow up? And he said, well, I'm going to be an astronaut and a doctor, and I'm going to learn sign language. And I said, are you going to do that all at once? Like an adult would be a little skeptical. Of course I'm going to do it all at once. Of course I am. And I'm going to start now. I've already started, actually. Okay, fantastic. So they were already unlimited. And the last thing we need to do is to limit their dreams. So with this young boy, it would be, okay, so what can we do to help him become an astronaut? What can we do to help him with sign language? What can we do to help him become a doctor? Maybe he should have extra biology classes. So I believe that every child from the age of 7 at least should have a brilliance profile. And we're creating an app around that. What is Jackie's brilliance. She's 7 years old and she loves school, right? And she's enthusiastic. And we know her strengths. We know what she loves. We know what she does at weekends. We know what she loves to do in her spare time. And that is the key to her brilliance. What about her weaknesses? Well, who cares unless Jackie cares? So if Jackie has one weakness and she decides, okay, I'm going to do something about my spelling. I'm just making this up, Jackie. I'm going to do something about my spelling, and I'm going to be the top of the class next term. And this is what I'm going to do about it. Or who cares how I spell? I'm just going to go on ChatGPT or whatever.
Exactly.
So Jackie would have her entrepreneurial vision, her brilliance profile from the age of 7, and then go through the entrepreneurial journey, finding out if she's a visionary, an organizer, a marketer, getting together in cooperation with other children, with her vision, with what really drives her, and then make all the mistakes in school, right? Because of course you're not going to be using money, you're going to be using points in schools, but by the time you're 17, Jackie, you have an income for life because you have a website, you have a landing page, you have a way of selling your service or your product. And that should be useful for every single child, whether they decide to be an actress or a dancer or a singer. They would have sustainable income, and they need to learn about money. They need to learn, number one, about themselves emotionally. So emotional autonomy and financial autonomy in schools.
I love that. That to me, that makes so much sense. Like this doesn't seem like we can't do this right now. And I know that's something that you're like really working on with this app and then with your schools that you're envisioning, is that tapping into their excitement. They're excited when they're young. Like children do have this sense of I'm limitless, like I can do whatever I want. And instead of going, that's great, like you're going to be an astronaut when you're older, but we're still going to go back to the old school system and you're going to go through 5 different subjects in a day and you might spend this amount of time on science, even though that's what you're into, and nothing to do with like actually preparing you for that role. And I think setting up a profile that a student can say, this is my strengths. And if there's areas of improvement I do want to focus on because it can be helpful here, great. If not, then I'm going to continue to focus on my strengths. It allows them to have agency. It allows them to have self-reflection about who they are. I mean, we're just starting to talk about in my school, just starting to talk about student-led conferences like in the high school. I'm like, of course they should be reflecting on their learning and having a portfolio of work that they can show to their parents and talk about what they're doing well or what they want to work on. I'm like, why aren't we doing this already? It's 2023. I know like the middle school, a lot of those students do that. So we're just like at like just the beginning, but this is brilliant. I think this app would be so powerful in schools. Like I would use it. I would love to use it. Like we have an advisory program, and if we started at least in the advisory program where we meet with like a small group of students once a week saying, we're going to start this Brilliance app. We're going to find your brilliance, and then we're going to use this to weave that into an entrepreneurial project, and then making space, of course, in the school day for that, which means we're not teaching all the subjects and they're not just going from class to class to class to class. You need
Exactly.
time to let things marinate, to let the creativity come out, to research, to spend some time working on your cognitive, piece. And so I always like talk about that on the show, is that my passion is breaking down these schedules, these tight schedules in school that don't really serve us anymore. I don't think they served us at all because we're just a hamster on a wheel doing a bunch of things. And if you really want a child to find their brilliance, if you really want a child to work on their cognitive work, you need time, you need space, you need quiet, you need reflection, and then you need guidance from, teachers who could be just like the facilitators instead of like, I'm just this expert in a subject area. Um, This is very doable, and I'm really glad that you are creating this this program, this app, and this is why I bring people on this show. I just want to keep talking about it and informing people that this is out there and it's happening. They're not even just ideas now. You both are doing it. Like you're doing the work. So I want to kick it back over Anne Marie if there's
And
anything else you want to share.
yeah, because it is huge for teachers to facilitate learning in that way. Inquiry doesn't just happen overnight. And so when we talk about students' brilliancy, what I love about the age that Katarina is proposing, like beginning that with, is developmentally kids are so ripe through the experiences that they have or don't have. So a couple of things that I jotted down while she was speaking was about the brilliance, the failure rates, right? And then you had mentioned the emotional autonomy, because what we tend to do is box students into you have this potential, but when we look at that, it's like potential is limitless. You know, we're the ones limiting by putting them into a box and saying, this is what you can do. When we look at that nature and nurture component and how we can either expand or restrict what's available for kids, just in the way that we interact with them in an educational setting. And so failures, when I fail and it becomes a public scrutiny for me as a child, I learn to just shut down when that happens. And that's such a missed opportunity for my learning. And then also with the brilliance piece, it's looking at um, our own awareness of the role of opportunity for students who have different lifestyles and come from different means, and how their brilliance can grow and expand through experiences like field trips or guest speakers, or bringing in, now we have so many opportunities to bring in through the streaming services and the videos, different exposures that many of us wouldn't have. You know, the kids in Florida didn't know what a blizzard was. They thought it was an ice cream from an ice cream shop. And you bring in a video and turn your classroom into a snow experience. They have now that tactile experience, that visual experience. They can speak to people who work in the snow plows and like work in areas where there is a lot of snow, and that expands what they can do. So when you talk about then their brilliance, they can bring that information into and not live inside that box that's been set for them. It's really an incredible opportunity. I remember when we first met, Katarina and I spoke about education and how important it is, and how it chose both of us in different ways. You know, it became our path. And it was not a, for me, for sure, I shared, it was not a, I didn't go willingly. You know, like by the time I was in high school, I was going in the entrance of the school and out the back of the school with whoever had a car, and would skip class because it provided me with nothing more. I was not a social being. I was very much an introvert. I had few very close friends. I didn't have a lot of challenge academically. And so I came from a line of, I'm the youngest of five. And so I had a lot of preconceived ideas of what I was going to do or not do based off of my siblings. And so there was a lot that I just removed myself from at that point, right? And thought, I'll seek elsewhere what I'm looking for, my ability to contribute and whatnot. And I had shared with Katarina, I received a scholarship and I didn't even know. One of my English teachers had seen something in me that I didn't see, and had put me up for a scholarship that was for education. And I didn't even go to the awards ceremony. because none of it meant anything to me because I didn't have that sense of belonging. So I love when you speak about emotional autonomy because that was me as a kid. I didn't have that um, in that setting. And so um, education just kind of became like I got so caught up in development and looking at, at that time, neurosciences wasn't big, readily available, especially for us in education. And so, but child development was. So, looking at how we develop as human beings, I just went from that child development perspective to adults and that breakdown of the
Mm,
creativity and the spark and the fervor. I was totally into it because that was me. It was like I was learning later. If I had been able to learn that, as a child and guide myself through, it would have been amazing. But it is that like everything brings me back to education. And I'm so grateful for it at this
mm,
point in my life. Because it might not be what is considered the norm, especially in North America, but um, there are people that you have available now that you can get on a Zoom call across the globe and have really insightful conversations that are going to impact in whatever ways the world that our kids are growing up in when it comes to learning. And that's an incredible thing to be a part of.
yeah, thank you for sharing that personal story. Some of that you shared before when you were on.
Mhm.
And I will be linking both of your episodes in the show notes. So, and I'll plug more at the end of our conversation so that, the listeners can hear all of your story. But some of that I didn't know about your time in school. And I resonate with that too. Like I felt I was more introverted in school. And here's the thing too, and I talk about this in my psychology class, language and how we have positive and negative connotations to things. So for a very long time, introvert was very considered more like negative, like, oh, well, that means you're not social, you don't have friends, you can't be a leader, you don't want to be involved with, all these opportunities. And that's not the case at all. It's just really an energy level. But it was the same thing. Like school didn't provide anything socially for me and it wasn't challenging. And so I was kind of bored and just kind of jaded from it. I mean, I went to a very big public school too, so it was just like got lost in the numbers, but it was the same thing. It's like you think about the wasted time, which I mentioned before, and like Katarina like talked about 0 to 6, right? And how we should be really having kids be lit up and passionate, and 7 really building on that. And we're just wasting a lot of that energy. Like if you look at neuroscience and brain development, your brain is just developing rapidly through those childhood, especially preteen and, teenage years. And that's when they're in this boxed K through 12 system. And then by the time you're in your 20s and your brain is already like now fully developed, now you're like, ooh, now I'll be an entrepreneur. Now I'll try to learn all these languages. Now I'll, and it's hard. It's hard to do that. Like I'm 41 and I didn't crack something open in my creativity outside of just being a teacher until I was 40. It just seems like it's such a waste of time that if you unlock the potential in a child throughout that K through 12 experience, wow, like you're going to have amazing humans who are flourishing, who are incredible leaders in the world. So this is, I mean, education and what we're doing and what we're talking about is global citizenship, and it's being a futurist. It's like we are doing this now to plant the seeds because we care about the future of this world. We see the shape of the world right now, not good, right? There's a lot of things where we need inspirational, creative, globally minded citizens who are leading these next generations. And we have to be shaping our educational spaces like that, whether it's a traditional building school, online school, micro school. I'm like learning about all these new alternative spaces. And that's kind of like where I've been in my research in 2023 and like looking to move into in 2024 is that there's all these different ways to do it. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to look like we're just breaking the whole traditional model and then replacing it with just one model. Like there's just a lot of different ways you can do it. But yeah, I think this is a very transparent, truthful conversation about how important it is, because we're wasting a lot of time. And not only wasting time, I think we are perpetuating the mental health crisis. Like I will say we are all accountable of it. We're all accountable. Adults are accountable. Um, because a lot of these kids are falling through the cracks. They're not getting the support that they need. And we're reactive instead of proactive. So reactive of like, well, now how do we treat children? Still talking about, medicine and therapy. Well, no, inspire them, bring them on board and have them hone their brilliance. And then that is being proactive. So it can combat, this mental illness crisis. Doesn't mean that doesn't still exist, but I think it's exasperated because we're actually just perpetuating the problem. We're not doing anything to tap into their brilliance. So,
Well, and when we're living in a time where the adults that are the mentors and modeling for the students are so overwhelmed and so filled with anxiety, and that seeps into their childhoods as well, right? And I think about I asked my granddaughter, she's 4, she'll actually be 5. I keep saying she's 3 because I don't want her to grow up, but she's
you have
4.
a granddaughter?
I do. I have 2. I have a granddaughter. We have 4 girls under the
Wow.
age of 6. We have a 6, a 5, a 4, and a almost 2-year-old. And my sister has 2 granddaughters, and I have 2 granddaughters. And my granddaughter, who is 4, I ask her the same questions that I ask my own children. And that was about, what did you learn today? Because we learn everywhere. And what brought you joy? And most days, unfortunately, she doesn't connect to what she's learned.
Hmm.
She was very excited the other day because with the holidays, she learned a Christmas song that she didn't know the words to. But she's one of those children who's fortunately, like, she has this ability, she's picking up on her letters, she's picking up on her reading on her own, right? So I'm like, tap into that. That's so much opportunity there. And so then when I ask her about the joy in her life, she is very social in school, but she has a lot of imaginary friends. And so she picks up on, they read a story about rockets. And so she came home and we researched rockets and space and astronauts. And we built, there's a 8-foot rocket made out of boxes that she's now like decorating based off of the planets that we're visiting in it. And she has those opportunities at home, but why can't she do them at school?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why isn't it? She's not the only child who has that inquisitiveness. And why does she have to find her imaginary friends to help fulfill that? The
Mm-hmm.
keep the spark going. Why can't we build environments? So I am a huge, huge supporter of doing work in our early years because I think it's foundational, and we need to learn from those ages and tap into what it is that allows them to continue to be so free and understanding. And we know neurologically what's happening at that time frame and how we are impacting it positively or negatively.
Mm.
There isn't
Yeah.
an in between.
Yes.
No,
There is.
I'm so glad you mentioned the subject of joy, Anne-Marie, because we need to bring joy into schools for
Mhm.
sure. Because children start off with joy. They have so much
Mm-hmm.
enthusiasm. They have so much joy. I went to school thinking that my teacher was going to discover me. And I think I'm not the only one, discover my brilliance. And so I waited and waited and waited. and nobody discovered my brilliance. I had to discover it myself. And it took me 20 years to discover it and to deprogram myself because Anne-Marie, you mentioned that you had resistance to going into education, schools, and all that. And we had a conversation. I remember it that I didn't want to either. I was asked from within to do this work, and my first reaction was no way. There's no way. Schools are boring. I don't want to have anything to do with them. No, 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 no. And then I talked to myself later, and the answer was yes. And I've never looked back from that. And it's given me so much joy. But we need to bring in dynamic teachers like Jackie back into schools and make them unlimited. I've read your book, Jackie. I love your book. It's all about your story and your ideas for new schools. And we need to keep teachers like Jackie, maybe coach them to be entrepreneurial teachers or linguistic teachers or whatever they love to do, but look at what brings the teachers joy, because there's nothing worse than a boring, joyless teacher.
Absolutely.
And we've all been through that, and maybe they can be our least favorite or our most favorite teachers, but it doesn't matter. What teachers need to be is dynamic. And if they're not dynamic, what are we doing in the classroom?
Yeah.
Well, and I do think that there's also value in looking at the teacher training and the systems that teachers work in, because I
Yes.
do think that it is an opportunity to reveal their voice
Yeah.
and their ability to be dynamic. Um I don't think we give teachers enough credit of how well they walk within the political system. And unfortunately, sometimes that means that our students end up getting the short end of the stick. But I do think that there's opportunity to sit down and say, so what would you want to learn? In this area, how would you want to approach it if the sky was the limit? And then make the sky the limit, like make it limitless for them. Change the systems for them to be able to offer the creativity and open the brilliance of the students and be brilliant themselves and not continue to have their lights dampened as well. And then I think that when you take that approach, it as in any organization, anyone who's not interested in that, like if they are so disconnected from life itself, then so be it. They can go on and contribute in different ways. There's not a place anymore for it. But instead of it becoming robots, I feel like sometimes
Yes.
educators are expected to check themselves out at the door and just go into these routines that they don't necessarily welcome. It's just becomes the job then instead of the passion and the
Yes.
love.
I know. I love that. And I was thinking with the Brilliance app, I think that Brilliance app would be great for teachers as well, because I think what happens just as much as kids don't feel seen, they don't feel like they have something special to offer to community. Many teachers feel that way. They feel boxed in. I mean, I feel like what I grew up in and what I'm still in is not very different. And I tried to be that dynamic teacher, and my hands are tied in certain ways, and there's certain things I do have freedom. But really, there's not a lot of people in the department roles, in the administrative roles that are saying, hey, Jackie, or hey, Anne Marie, hey, Katarina, like if we were in schools, what are your ideas for how we can bring out the brilliance in our children? What are the ideas to bring creativity and entrepreneurial projects to our school? Nobody asks those questions. So if they had the same faculty take this brilliance, profile and say, here's the brilliance profile of this, teacher and the students, and we're doing this together in community. And I think the teachers working with the students saying, like, let's build this together. Let's do it together. My vision for the future of the education system is the teachers and the students, or adults and the, learners, doing this hand in hand and working at it together and
Mhm.
breaking down the whole model of top down, right? Government running school boards running superintendents, superintendents running principals, principals then running department chairs, teachers, student. I mean, the whole thing is top down, and it's about control. And
Mhm.
it's about, just keeping things tight and in a routine. And you have a lot of lifeless teachers that often will say, I got this many years to retirement. I mean, I have it in my family. I have it in my community of friends. And it's sad to me because not only are they sad adults, but they're the ones in front of our children. And
Mhm.
that's what they're getting. They're getting this lifeless, and, I don't wanna blame the teachers, but it's the system that's created it, but we gotta crack it open. And we need to start having faith in the teachers and their ideas and being able to shape a new type of way of doing school, because they can do it. Because there's a lot of brilliant, dynamic, creative teachers, especially the young ones, who unfortunately will leave, under 5 years, because
Mhm.
then they're like, I can't stay in this system anymore. And a lot of them are creating new schools and new ways of doing it. But the teacher training programs, definitely we need to change it in a way to say, like, where's your autonomy, where's your creativity, what can you create when you get into these schools, how do you have a voice?
Yeah,
um
there needs to be a bridge, definitely,
a
because my
bridge, yeah.
experience with being a mentor teacher and having new teachers come in and relinquish control of the classroom to them for a portion of the time. And I had so many that just were like, they would see what it would take for me on a regular basis to be able to bring the brilliance out in the kids and juggle the dynamics of the politics of the profession and the the culture in the building, the culture of the district we were in, all these different elements, and they were just like, "Pff, can't do it.
Mm,
Like, I can't tap into my joy with the amount of what it takes from me kind of experience for many of them. And so what if we had a bridge between being able to give them this open door of learning at the university to be new teachers, and then how to what part of the systems actually have the authority? Because when you're a new teacher, you're just like, okay, I want a job, right?
yeah.
I want to be I came into this because I love kids, but I need to be able to keep my job. And so everything that everybody says as a definitive, this is a must, you're trying to do. And as you're trying to jump through all of those hoops, you're losing that love and that passion that you brought to the profession. And then you're like, I mean, I had one of my one of my student teachers went and she became a trainer at a gym.
Mm,
And
mm,
that's what she, because
mhm,
she could have the accomplishments. She didn't have all the rigmarole. Her energy wasn't zapped. There was just a lot of reasons, but she also didn't get to have the impact with the
yeah,
students, right?
yeah,
Like she's missing out on that. I don't know
yes,
where she is now today, but so I think that there is something to be said for bridging higher ed and
yeah.
K-12. I've always kept my feet in both,
Hmm.
always. I thought when I did my doctorate that I wanted to only be a university professor at that time. Um, and feel like the doors that it opened up and the interactions that other roles at university have with K-12 really allowed me to get a fuller picture where
Mm,
I'm better as an instructor in higher ed when I'm working with teachers in training, especially when I work with teachers who want to focus on exceptional education.
mm,
Um, and then I'm also better when I'm in the K-12 system working with teachers or working with students because I've learned how to recognize what part of the systems we have to adhere to and what part are just this big scary monster in the closet that that isn't going to come and get you,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
If you allow a child to interact with their reading in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
Um, and that takes a lot of years, and it also takes some bravery that I didn't realize that I had.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you so much. Anything else, Katerina, you want to share before we wrap up today? This has been such a stimulating conversation, as I knew it would be, bringing you two together.
Well, I'd just like to leave you with an image, a picture, a dream that there's a group of young entrepreneurs creating a skateboard, and the phone rings, and it's their parents saying, "It's 7 o'clock. Dinner's on the table. Where are you? We're at school and we're having a great time." "Well, come home." "No, you bring the food here, mom and dad, because this is what we're going to do. And we need to share this with you because we're so excited. We can't leave school." So that's one picture. And the
Mm,
other picture is 194 schools. This group with a skateboard can reach out to 194 other schools, learn different languages, do exchanges, so that the whole world becomes a dynamic center of education.
I love that vision. Yes, and that we're all connected and learning from each other all over the
Exactly.
world. That's
Cooperation, not
yep.
competition,
Yeah,
cooperation and
over
collaboration. Yeah.
Yes, and that's where we're moving into. So, thank you. That was a really beautiful image to end this conversation. So, anything you want to share about your contact information, I'll put in the show notes, either, website, where's best social media to find you, and I'll plug also your episodes from the previous seasons in the show notes as well. Katerina, if you want to
Okay,
share
thank
first.
you. The best way to reach me is on LinkedIn, Katarina Hanssens Carlsson.
Yeah,
Thank you.
LinkedIn is great for me too, and it's actually under See Things Differently. And then the website is seethingsdifferently.org as well. And that's where all my updated resources and everything land. So and I'm always open, like my email's available on both. And I love to start conversations and jump in Zoom and hear what everybody's doing because it just helps me grow and feeds me as well.
Yes, these are two wonderful leaders in education you want to connect with. They are very open to sharing ideas. You can see there is a lot of light, a lot of inspiration, and this is why I am just so fortunate to have you both on today. So thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. I think 2024 is going to be a big year. I think we're all moving and shaking in different ways in the educational space.
Definitely. Thank you.
We are exactly. Thank you so
Bye, have a
much.
good day.
Happy Christmas, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.